and welcome to GameSack. Today we're going to look at some ports of games that you may not know existed because they were overshadowed by the more popular versions. Now these ports may not be as good as, the more well-known versions, but hey, they exist. Anyway, let's start out with some Batman Returns. Batman Returns on the Super NES is a fun beat-em-up from Konami. It's an exciting romp and it's much better than Sega's own Batman Returns attempt on the Genesis. You get to fight baddies and even toss shurikens at them from time to time. Sorry, I mean bat wings. Sorry again, I mean batarangs. The graphics are great, everything is huge and fat just like an arcade game. The soundtrack is also really well done, using themes from the movie as well as other great sounding original stuff. The biggest flaw in this one is that it's single player only. Well, it may have been an issue in the 90s when it came out because, people actually got together back then, but these days it's more rare when that happens, so it's fine. But did you know that Konami also brought Batman Returns to the NES? Quite literally nobody knows about this version. Well, except for those who do. And here it's once again a single player beat 'em up, though some of the settings and whatnot have changed a little bit. You have a few dependable moves such as punching, jumping, and your jump kick. You can also do a slide, which is a nice way to get to the other side of an enemy to attack since this usually stuns them in the process. You also have a spin attack, which is good for when there's enemies on both sides of you. Naturally, this costs you a bit of your life bar. Come on, if it didn't, you'd probably just spam it endlessly. You can also use the exciting select button to cycle between your grappling hook, batarangs, and nothing. These special items are used by pressing up and attack. You'll want to select nothing if you accidentally keep firing off your grappling hook in battle, for example, when you don't mean to. The batarangs do a number on the enemies, and even bosses, though they're limited. The good news though is that the fine citizens of Gotham City have hidden more for you underneath trash cans and whatnot. Some parts of some stages have status effects, I guess you could call them. Status of the stages, that is. Like here, there's ice on the ground so you slide around a bit if you stop moving. Or how about here on this rooftop where you slide down slowly and you can even fall off if you're not careful. The enemies don't have to worry about falling off though, because of course they don't. Or how about this drone which drops bombs onto the floor creating holes? If you fall in, well, it's all the way back to the beginning of the stage for you. In order to change things up a bit, the game has a driving sequence just like the Super NES game does. Well, this one's actually straight out of the original Genesis Batman game, but it's still a nice and much needed change of pace. Like seriously, check out how close this is to the Genesis Batman game. That's okay though. The game does start to drag on in the upper levels. This is almost always an issue that affects any beat 'em up. You can only take so much of punching enemies a million times before a few more come in and then a few more after that, and then the screen advances a tiny bit and then you repeat the process. Depending on the game, it can be mind-numbing. In fact, I just got bored and turned the game off towards the beginning of Mission 5. This was after about 40 minutes of gameplay. I had had enough. There are 6 missions total in the game. The graphics are generally good for the console. The colors certainly aren't bright, but this is Batman we're talking about here. The game puts up to 3 enemies on screen at once, which is slightly impressive for the machine. And some of the enemies are pretty tall. I like that each enemy has a nice, easily readable health bar under yours. I do wish that the stages had a bit more personality in their visuals though. The music is pretty good, but it also gets repetitive quickly as the tunes are too short for how long the stages are. Each track should probably be 3 times as long as they currently are before they loop. In fact, I think this would go a long way into helping the game feel less of a slog. Overall, it's certainly not a horrible game, but I wouldn't really say it's a great one either. This next game is one of my favorites, Ghouls and Ghosts. Now, a lot of people think that this showed up on the Super Nintendo, but no, that's a completely different game. So it's within reason to assume that most people don't know about the Master System port. The arcade version of Ghouls and Ghosts is awesome. It's an incredible follow-up to Ghosts and Goblins, and for its time, it's just a phenomenal game in every way. The title even got more prominence when it was ported to the Genesis. It was surprisingly a faithful conversion, again, for the time. It was the killer app for the system early on, or at least one of them, and it showed up not long after the console launched in North America. It was this version where I learned the ins and outs of the game design and made it so I could beat any version. Not long after this, a lot of noise started to be made about the port to the Super Graphics, which was only one of the 5 exclusive games on that console. It has 60% more memory than the Genesis game, so they were able to be even more faithful to the arcade when it came to the graphics. The magazines of the time kept talking about how it destroys the Genesis version. But in truth, it's better in some parts, like here, and I'd say worse in others, like right here. The scrolling isn't right, it's not like the arcade, whereas the Genesis version is. Still, it's a really awesome port overall. But the port nobody talks about is the one for the Sega Master System. I've mentioned this one before, but it belongs in this episode as well. This one, of course, has the reduced graphic and sound quality just like you'd expect for an 8-bit console. That comes naturally from the console's weaker architecture, but also the fact that it has 60% less memory than the Genesis game. That's right, it's only 2 megs. But what's interesting with this port is that they didn't just do a straightforward conversion. They tried to add to it in an attempt to make the game more interesting in order to make up for its other weaknesses. In other versions of the game, you can open treasure chests to get weapons, armor, magic armor, or even a sorcerer who can temporarily change your form. Here on the Master System, the treasure chests mostly give you the sorcerer, but occasionally they give you a door. This door leads to a shop which is exclusive to this version. In here, you can pick from one item. These will power you up. Red is better than silver, green is better than red, and gold is the best. A better helmet improves your magic ability, better armor allows you to take extra hits, and better shoes make you move faster. That's right, once you power yourself up, you can take a lot more damage in this game. And if you lose a life, these power-ups stay with you. You can also get different weapons in these shops. Your magic meter is on the left of the screen, and as you can see, you can use it a lot. Often, these shops will allow you to restore your hit points or magic points. Amazingly, all of the stages are here. And yes, like all of the other versions, you still have to go through the game twice to truly beat it. The graphics are pretty good, all things considered, though the sound and music are extremely weak. A lot of people didn't like the changes this version makes, but I find them interesting. It definitely makes it stand out in the crowd a little. In fact, I'm surprised that they took the time and the initiative to add these things. This is Snatcher from Konami, and of course, it's on the Sega CD. This game originated on various Japanese computers, and to this day, this is the only official version of the game released in English. In my opinion, this is one of those games that's super praised that actually lives up to the hype that it receives. At least if you like digital comic graphic adventure style games. Just keep choosing and reading every option from every menu, and you should be okay. The trip is fantastic, even if every single story beat is lifted from popular American movies. But hey, that's Hideo Kojima for you. The Sega CD wasn't the only home console to get this one though. It also came out for the PC Engine Super CD, but only in Japan naturally. You can also play it on the TurboGrafx Mini. Unfortunately, it's all in Japanese, but I've played through the Sega CD game enough to where I can kinda fudge my way around it. This isn't an in-depth comparison video as I don't have the ability to play completely through the Japanese versions. And no, don't suggest playing this with Google Lens on my phone translating it screen by screen. That is not a pleasant way to play video games at all. I'd rather chew off my own foot. So please, stop suggesting that. The PC Engine CD version was supervised by Hideo Kojima, at least a little bit, while the Sega CD version wasn't. So if that's super important to you, well then you're gonna prefer this version. It's not markedly different than the Sega CD game though in most respects. The graphics are more or less identical in most scenes, maybe a hair more color. And so is the gameplay, which again consists of choosing menu option after menu option. There's less censorship on the PC Engine CD game when it comes to some minor nudity here and there, and also a twitching dog. The opening has fewer scenes on the PC Engine, but at least it features the same great music. The final act in the Sega CD version has some shooting scenes that were added. Snatcher even came to the PlayStation and Saturn in Japan. This is the Saturn version, but it's basically the same as the PlayStation, or at least probably, I don't know, I haven't played it. Here, they took the original drawings from the PC Engine version specifically and padded them with more color. I don't know, I think I like the Sega CD and PC Engine versions better. The 32-bit versions look like they smeared Vaseline on it. They also changed the music. Usually it's the same tunes, but now it sounds softer and, again, less good. The voices are all taken from the PC Engine game. You now have a giant metal background filling the screen instead of empty space. And the text bubbles need to scroll on and off the screen every time a line changes. Gotta say, I'm not a big fan of how the text box keeps bouncing up and down. I've read that the 32-bit versions keep the same censorships found in the Sega CD game. Regardless of all this, I'd love it if any of these versions received English fan translations. I'd for sure play through them. I don't really know why I'm holding my arm up like this in this episode, but I tell you right now, I am not gonna stop. Anyway, this next game, it really sucks the big one, but are the ports maybe at least a little better? Wayne's World by Grey Matter and THQ on the Super NES is a horrible game. In fact, it's famous for how bad it is. You play as Wayne in horribly designed stages with some of the most annoying enemies ever. The visuals are trash, and the game features some of the worst audio ever heard on the console. It's like the designers couldn't figure out how to take something like Wayne's World and make it into a video game. I can't blame them on that account. The whole thing was a bad idea from the start. Nobody likes this game. It also appeared on the Genesis in a super sloppy port. They didn't even bother trying to optimize the colors at all, so you often don't even see the hazards in the stages. What makes this even worse is that the jump and attack buttons are backwards, and you can't reassign them. B jumps and C attacks. Man, this is bad. But did you also know that it showed up on the NES developed by Radical Entertainment? Maybe this version can at least be a little bit more fun to play than the infamous 16-bit games. Maybe, but only because it's a completely different game. Don't worry, it's still abysmal though. You alternate playing as Wayne and Garth. Garth can shoot a laser gun. Wayne, however, resorts to kicking for some reason. Your attacks can be powered up with the P icon. This will give Wayne a roundhouse kick that's actually pretty effective. Garth will get a spread shot for his laser gun, but sadly this doesn't last very long before it reverts back into the single wimpy beam. And it is wimpy. The collision detection sucks. Oh, and you have fall damage. Because everyone loves that. What makes them think to include that? Donuts can refill your life bar a tiny bit. You get this donut stage as a bonus after every regular stage. This game stays truer to the movie than the 16-bit games, but they still had trouble thinking on how to make it an actual game. Like, why is Wayne getting attacked by everyone and everything? Even TV screens are coming out of the TV to attack him. What the hell kind of drugs were these guys on? Even spiders and drops of water want you dead. The graphics are extremely basic, and I'm assuming that one poor fellow with a deadline made all of them. The music is better than the 16-bit games, but that's not saying much. Surprisingly, there are a few voice samples in here.
No way!
In fact, when Garth dies, he complains in Wayne's voice.
No way.
Poor Dana Carvey, he never gets his due. Did you know that this was even ported to the Game Boy, also by Radical Entertainment? I bet you didn't, unless you did. It takes after the NES version, but of course they had to make it brand new from the ground up because you can't just move an NES game to the Game Boy like you can with a Master System game to the Game Gear. So is it any better? No! Well, actually some things are better. There's no longer any fall damage to worry about, and grabbing the donuts and other items is a lot easier. And one might argue that the graphics are better than the NES game. Oh, and the music is now in stereo. But as far as the improvements go, that is it. The control is much slower, very laggy. I don't even know how they made the controls so laggy. It really makes the game quite frustrating, like your Game Boy is broken or something. In a futile attempt to reduce screen blur, they made it so the screen can't even keep up with Wayne or Garth as they navigate the stages. This is fantastic when you need to jump down where an enemy is waiting for you and you can't see what's going on. But the worst thing is that they added a lot of bounce back when you get hit. The NES game barely had any, but boy oh boy this version sure does. It makes these bottomless pit areas a pain in the ass. Your life is worth a lot more than wasting time playing this game, or any of these Wayne's World games. And now, you don't have to. This is Caveman Ninja from Data East for the arcades. This is a game where you play as a caveman ninja by tossing various projectiles at enemies and what have you. This game was enjoyed by dozens of people during its run in the arcade. That's right, dozens! It came home to the Super Nintendo as Joe and Mac. It's similar to the original, but it changes things around, like lengthening the stages, which were pretty short in the arcade. You now also can collect keys. You use them on the brand new world map to unlock certain bonus areas and the like. The game is now really easy, but it's still somewhat enjoyable. Unfortunately, the game now only moves at 30 frames per second. Later, it came to the Genesis as Joe and Mac Caveman Ninja. Finally, the ninjas are back! Compared to the Super Nintendo game, this one is much more like the arcade. However, the colors have taken a noticeable hit, though I still think the game looks pretty good. At least it moves at 60 frames per second. This version is also hard as balls, if balls are hard. Kinda like a cannonball, I guess, not like a beach ball. Okay, I think I'm trying way too hard to make that funny. I'd rather play the game on the Super Nintendo as it's just a bit more pleasant to play. But did you know that Joe and Mac also came to the 8-bit NES? It was developed by Elite Systems, a British outfit. You can tell it was developed in Europe because of how the options allow you to turn the music and sound effects off. Only Europeans think of that, likely because of their experience making games for their microcomputers. As you've probably already noticed, the graphics here are pretty good, with some nice parallax effects going on. Unfortunately, the gameplay doesn't match the visuals. Elite Systems must have originally made the game too easy, and they decided the best way to fix that was to put in tons upon tons upon tons of flying pterodactyls. These guys are extraordinarily annoying. And they're everywhere, even during boss fights. In the later stages, we instead get these flying hawk-like things, but they behave in the exact same way. They also made it so that most of the enemies take a ton of hits. I mean, look at this. How much do I have to hit this plant before it dies? There are many times where there's no way to get enough hits in before they hit and damage you. This all must have been a last-minute fix, and they didn't playtest it before sending it off to be manufactured because balanced, it is not. The game loosely takes after the arcade, but like the Super Nintendo game, it's been changed a bit. This little dinosaur is now the very first boss, and he coughs up baseballs at you. Look at all of those baseballs. The second stage is similar to the first stage in the other games, but here you go over the backs of 2 dinosaurs instead of just 1. That's 8-bit power for you. The second boss here is the first boss from the other games, and he attacks from the right this time. The other stages are facsimiles of the arcade stages in one way or another. Like the arcade and the Genesis games, the stages here tend to be pretty short. The good news, I guess, is that the game moves at 60 frames per second. Take that, Super Nintendo, I guess you're not so super after all. There's nothing special about the sound, it's remarkably average. Is it even possible to be remarkably average? Well, this game does it. Oh well, now that we've looked at this one, I suppose we can all put it out of our minds again for the rest of time. NES Joe and Mac, I hope you enjoyed your 2 minutes in the spotlight, or however long it was, you piece of crap. I really want to be a huge fan of this next game because I love the way it plays, but some of the rooms in it, they just seem to drag on and on, especially on the Super Nintendo port. But did you know about the 8-bit versions? Smash TV is a 1990 arcade game that used the twin-stick firing method. It's from Eugene Jarvis, the man behind Robotron 2084. Apparently, he had just watched Running Man and RoboCop immediately before designing this game.
I'd buy that for $1.
Each screen lasts forever, but they're all gonna seem short compared to the boss fights, which last for infinity plus one. At least in single player mode. The game really wants you to play with someone else. The port most people remember is for the Super Nintendo, where it was known as Super Smash TV. Its controller is perfectly suited for this game thanks to the diamond button layout that makes the control mostly a breeze. Overall, this is seen as the definitive port, and for good reason. It also came to the Genesis. What's interesting about this version is that you can use two controllers in single-player mode. The big problem with this is that holding the right controller in a way that's comfortable can be difficult. It's probably best with two joysticks instead, or at least a joystick for your right hand. No, not that joystick, get your mind out of the gutter. The graphics and sounds have both taken a pretty big dive. While not as well regarded as the Super Nintendo game, a lot of people definitely played this one. But nobody ever thinks to play it on the NES, and this is the only console port not called Super Smash TV. Obviously, this one's going to be pretty watered down. The cool thing though is that you can again use two controllers to have twin sticks for a single player, but it's handled in a way that's so much more comfortable than the Genesis game. You hold both of the controllers vertically and it works super well. In fact, I'd say it works just as well, if not a little better, than the Super NES implementation. You can even do two players simultaneous using this method if you have one of those 4-player adapters. The game itself is fine. Strangely, Mr. Shrapnel is now a rolling bomb instead of a walking, exploding man with his own hopes and dreams of exploding. The bomb is still called Mr. Shrapnel though. Another curious thing is that the music only plays for a very short time, and then you're left with white noise sound effects until you clear the room. After that, the music starts up again. I'm wondering if the developers got sick of the music and they were like, yeah, this needs to stop after a bit. It gets so annoying if it keeps playing. I love that it even has most of the voices.
Big money! Big prizes! I love it!
The biggest flaw in this game is the lack of a continue feature, and that's a pretty big flaw. There's a hidden level select code though. Another port that never gets a mention, and for good reason, is the one for the Master System. This was only released in Europe. Sadly, you can't use two controllers with this one. You have a few different control options, like having one button firing in the direction you're facing, the other locking your firing position, or you can even choose to have a button shoot behind you. This works not very well at all. I generally find myself going into a corner and just locking into the opposite diagonal direction for the most effectiveness, and even that's not very effective. The graphics here are extremely plain and choppy since the game doesn't use any sprites. It just draws everything to the background layer. This has the undesired side effect of making the game appear to run too fast. It also means you have at least 4 frames of lag, as the game only updates at 15 frames per second at best. It might run a bit slower on PAL consoles, but really, it can't be much better. It has bad music and no voices. The guy pops up from time to time, but he doesn't say anything. Why not? Lame! There's even a Game Gear version, and it's not limited to Europe. I'm sure that this was everyone's last choice on what platform they wanted to play Smash TV on. And it's just like the Master System game, though it doesn't run as fast. I assume that this is what the Master System game runs like on PAL consoles. This helps a little, I guess, but it's still incredibly annoying to play. When Super Star Wars on the Super NES came out, I got it for Christmas that year. Star Wars as a franchise wasn't as oversaturated back then as it is now, so this had a chance of being decent. I never cared much for this game though, as the gameplay just isn't very good, and it has really bad stage design. So I sold it, and I never regretted it, not even for a second. Thank goodness I also got Streets of Rage 2 that Christmas. But you just knew that they were going to do the entire trilogy, and not long after that, Super Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back came out. I of course skipped it. In fact, I don't even think I rented it. And again, after that, we got Super Star Wars Return of the Jedi. This is the first time I'm playing it here, and hopefully the last. The gameplay over the previous titles hasn't improved much. I mean, there is a double jump now, so that's cool. And I can choose my character. The stage design is still amateur at best, even though these guys have been making these games for years by this point. Yes, somehow they found a way to be amateur and professional at the same time. I guess the better word would just be bad. They knew that you'd lose lots of lives for no good reason, so it's really easy to keep getting extra lives. Like seriously, this thing picks me up and drops me off of the screen and I die. The stage design here went through exactly one pass with no feedback. But come on, this is Sculptured Software here, not exactly a celebrated name in the video game landscape. I did find it interesting that Super Star Wars Return of the Jedi ended up on the Game Gear, developed by Real Time Associates and Black Pearl Software. In fact, there are some ex-EGM dudes listed in the credits. So is this version better? Yes it is. The stage design is still a bit trashy, but at least it's doable without a ton of frustration. And get this, you can look up and down to see what's around you. You can't do that in the Super Nintendo game, and you really need to be able to do it there. A few stages are missing here, and many are shorter. It's a good thing that they're shorter, but some of them are still pretty long. Oh hey look, a vending machine. I'll pop in a quarter. Haha, nice, it's serving out slightly thawed Han Solos. The game certainly looks jankier, but to me it actually feels a bit better to play. Probably because there aren't 900 things on screen at once trying to attack me. You still get the ability to choose your character. Luke is definitely the best. Leia is okay, I mean she's doable. I mean as far as playing the game, not... okay, never mind. Chewbacca is by far the worst, he's so incredibly weak. What the hell, he should be a powerhouse. Oh well, just don't choose Chewie. There's not as much music here, and as such it can get annoying sooner than it should. So this still isn't a fantastic game, but I certainly did have more fun with this version. It even came to the Game Boy from these same developers. It's pretty much the same as the Game Gear game as far as the stage layout and gameplay go, but there's a tad less screen area to work with. Also, the lack of color makes it tough to make out things that can hurt you in certain areas. But hey, at least the music is in stereo, I guess. Not sure why the Game Gear version wasn't. I think the sound guy liked the Game Boy a lot more. I'd still rather play through the Game Gear version though. And there you go, some forgotten ports that you now remember and will likely forget about again once you click away from the video. That's okay though, it'll just give you an excuse to watch this episode again and again with your friends, your family, your romantic partners, even acquaintances and perfect strangers. Again and again, I tell you. Anyway, what are some ports that you feel have been lost throughout time? Let me know. In the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack. Hello and welcome to the GameSack ASMR channel. Here, you'll be able to delight your audio senses with GameSack favorites like
2 mega power! 3 mega power! 4 mega power!
You'll also enjoy other favorites like
Tate mode! Tate mode! Tate mode!
Relax in the pleasant calm that is GameSack.
16 mega power! 17 mega power!
Soak in the auditory bliss.
Did you just say kids?
You will never sleep better.
You can go straight to hell!
And we certainly can't forget about
Green dog! Green dog! Green dog!
your ears and your nerves are gonna thank you.
1,447 mega power! 1,448 mega power! 1,449 mega power! 3 mega... Tate mode! Tate